Political challenges. What do you feel is the most pressing one that you would want municipalities to perhaps consider standing behind Westario?
John, I know you asked for one, but I still have to go back and talk about two.
Okay.
The first one was my closing comment around the local distribution companies like Westario Power being the banker for the system. It, in my mind, is not sustainable in the long term. It is patently unfair that we should be the ones solely responsible to bank the entire system in the province, and we being the 80 local distribution companies in the province of Ontario. And what is more unfair is that we have absolutely no recourse on bad debt situations, as I mentioned to Council just a few moments ago, John. We need to be able to recover from the beneficiaries, being retailers in particular, funds that have been paid to them that were not paid to us. And that is number one, John. The other thing is access to capital. If we're going to grow Westario, if we're going to do anything in the line of acquisition, because of the restrictions in the Municipal Act right now, Saugeen Shores and all other municipalities that are involved in ownership of Westario Power, by legislation, cannot make further investments in growing this company, which would seem to be somewhat of an oxymoron. I mean, if you're going to grow a company, you better have access to capital, especially when it's capital intense as the LDCs are. You saw from the financial statistics that Lisa presented this evening that Westario right now has equity of $25 million and assets of almost $50 million. And we're one of the small players in the province, John. We have 21,000 customers. Some utilities have 3 and 4 and 500,000, all the way up to the city of Toronto, which is Toronto Hydro, has in the millions. So for us to grow our business, we need access to capital. In order to get access to capital, we have to remove the shackles that does not allow our shareholders, our very owners, to either increase their equity position or to remove the ownership restrictions such that we can access the capital markets.
And you mentioned something about that, like you can't just go out and start acquiring new properties and so on. Your hands are more or less tied, I take it.
Well, John, any business is no different than an individual. We all have our upset borrowing limits. It's based on your assets, it's based on your cash flow, it's based on your profitability, and quite simply, your ability to pay. When we hit that limit, now we have not even come close to that yet, John, and I'm very proud of the job that Lisa and her staff have done. You know, our debt equity ratios are as good as anything in the province. But at the end of the day, because of the capital intensity of buying another utility, it does put a lot of pressure on anyone's ability to fund that without access to the capital market.
I think bottom line is, as much as you say this and the municipalities are involved, it's really the individual taxpayers who are on the system that really are footing the bill, aren't they?
Well, and that's where the frustration comes from, John. I mean, you saw the slide we put up tonight. You know, we're going to put, for all intents and purposes, an amount into Saugeen Shores this year that's reducing your taxes as a resident of this municipality by about 4.5% of the local levy. So the local levy is $8 million, and we're reducing that by 4.5%. You can see that this is a very important asset for the town of Saugeen Shores, and by extension for the residents of this community. So the success of this thing is inherently good for everyone, and that's why we need to be always conscious of how we're going to grow the business. But as long as we have some of the legislative restrictions that are out there, John, it becomes somewhat frustrating.
What do you want, Council?